here. We want to address writers' approaches to various questions, right? So some of the questions that we'll be engaging today: what does it mean to imagine the past? What are the ways in which writing in the humanities can be a powerful vehicle to understand race in the United States? And then what is the role and function of fiction or nonfiction in recovering memory? So as I said, we have a packed schedule. We're going to get started with our graduate panel. And we have, I think we have two so far. We for sure have Elizabeth Wallace on. I'm going to pause just a bit for those of you online, a tiny bit as we set up for our grad fellows who will be coming in. I'd like to, while we're getting that ready, I'd like to call on Dr. Billy Johnson Gonzalez, if he has anything to say.
Thank you. The first thing I want to say is thank you for joining us at the crack of dawn this morning. So we really appreciate you being here. This has been an incredible 3-year odyssey. As most of you probably know, the Mellon Foundation gave us a grant to create the Social Transformation Research Collaborative 3 years ago. And the funding sort of ends this year in December. So this symposium really is the culmination of 3 years of work and effort. And I have to say that I feel very humbled to be here with many of you in the room who have participated along the way in this collaborative, especially Dr. Moody Freeman, who is the co-director. And I feel like it's hard to summarize for people how hard we've worked. But the first year of this grant, we met every single day for an hour and a half, every day of the week, from January through July. Right?
Yes.
So to set up many of the programs and processes that are attached to this program. So we're immensely happy about this work. And I think we're proud to say that the Mellon Foundation has invited us to apply for a renewal of the grant. So please pray to whatever you pray for, or to whom you pray, that the Mellon Foundation sees fit to give us a little bit more money to continue this work, and especially the work and the mission that the STRC is dedicated to, which is to do anti-racist scholarship. We live in a moment where, as you know, democracy hangs in the balance. The events of January 6th are being referred to as a day of love. War is tearing apart families in other parts of the world. Literal genocide seems to be being committed. Facts are being distorted and not reported. So in this context, I feel like it's super important to think about the humanities as the work or the kind of scholarship that can attend to details. People have very grand narratives that often erase material facts. They have grand narratives that want to, ideologically blind us to the condition of the world today. And the humanities brings us, as the name suggests, human stories, human realities, the specificities of real human lives. So we invite you today to think about the connections between writing, race, and memory. We hope that you will help us celebrate the power of the humanities in this way. We again, thank you for being here so early in the morning. And then I'll turn it back over to Dr. Moody Freeman.
Thank you. Yes, thank you. So I want to invite one of our cherished colleagues, Dr. Tracy Lewis Elligan, who is the Associate Dean for the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. Welcome, Tracy. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. Well, good morning. And it's a real privilege to be here and really to witness the hard work of Bill and Julie. And so thank you for inviting me here. So on behalf of the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences, welcome to this symposium. A symposium like this does not happen by chance. It takes a collective of committed people with both faculty, staff, and students across different disciplines to engage in this work and to bring it to fruition. It is my honor to say that this initiative for 3 years has supported the DePaul community at every level of academic life, from students just beginning their first year at DePaul to undergraduate and graduate students to postdoctorate fellows and faculty seeking promotion and professional development. In fact, to give you just a little bit of history, this initiative is the result of a cooperative effort between the African Black Diaspora Studies Department, the Latin American Latino Studies Department, the Global Asian Studies Program, and the Critical Ethnic Studies Program. The scholarship produced in these interdisciplinary units often speak directly to the central challenges that Bill alluded to. They prepare students to understand our contemporary problems like war, racism, forced migration, book banning, academic democratic politics. As a result, the Social Research Transformation Collaborative was formed in part to support and create space for true interdisciplinary scholarship focused on communities of color. And therefore, filmmakers, historians, cultural critics, literary scholars, historians, visual artists, creative writers, scholar activists have been invited to participate in our annual symposia, and thus have tried to exemplify one of our unique things about the College of Liberal Arts and Social Sciences. In doing so, this annual symposium has been a space to open dialogue on our campus, not only about anti-racist scholarship, but also a space to exchange positive energy about our academic work and to celebrate how art can do the political and spiritual work of healing and restoration. So I invite you to bring your full selves to enjoy this day. And again, I thank you on behalf of the College of Arts and Liberal and Social Sciences for participating today. So thank you.
All right, thanks, Tracy. So we will get started with the graduates. A quick intro for you, okay, so everybody can get to know you. So our grad fellows have been hard at work. The graduate fellowship runs from the summer, so they started in the summer. We're in 2024, right? Yes, so, summer 2024, and it runs through December. So they've been quite hard at work. We had 4, and today we will have, I believe, 2 presenters, Elizabeth Wallace and Claudia. So we'll begin with Elizabeth. Elizabeth is studying to earn her MA in Spanish with a certificate in translation and interpreting studies. She earned her BA in Spanish and K-12 education with ELL and bilingual endorsements. After finishing her undergraduate studies, she taught English in Peru on a Fulbright scholarship, which led to her deep interest in Latin America, Spanish-speaking populations, and Hispanic cultures. Elizabeth has worked as both an English teacher abroad and Spanish in various settings in the Chicagoland area. She seeks to continue to expand her linguistic and cultural knowledge, both through her studies at DePaul and through the research that she plans to conduct through STRC. I'll introduce one other speaker, and that is Claudia. So Claudia Cisneros Méndez, who you will meet, she'll be the second speaker. Claudia is a Peruvian feminist, journalist, and scholar. She is the founder of Fem Latam, a news outlet with a focus on gender and social justice. In 2021, she earned an MA in journalism, and in 2019, an MA in communication and development at Ohio University, where she was awarded the Robert L. or Terry W. Gerbig Graduate Scholarship in Journalism. She's currently pursuing an MA in Women's and Gender Studies here at DePaul, and she also works on the Feminist Pedagogy Project at the university. As a journalist, she has collaborated with several international news outlets, including CNN International, the History Channel, BBC, CBC Canada, Fuji TV Japan, and many Peruvian national TV stations. In March 2024, she won 3 Golden Mike Awards for outstanding news, writing, and reporting on migrant stories. She has several publications, including her book, Resist and Insist, Civil Disobedience in Peru, which includes a selection of her work as a political columnist for a national newspaper. And then she also has a co-authored publication titled Digital Inequality in Appalachian, Ohio, Understanding How Demographics, Internet Access and Skills Can Shape Vital Information. And this was published in the journal Telematics and Informatics. So I would like to welcome both Elizabeth and Claudia. So we will begin with Elizabeth, and let me share. All right, for those of you who are online, if there are any issues, definitely let us know, okay? Right, should we open it up? We might have to go like this. Okay. So it'll look a little different. I'll move this for you. Okay.
Okay. Good morning, everyone. As I've been introduced, my name is Elizabeth Wallace. Thank you for being here. I'm an MA candidate in the Spanish program. I worked on this project with my advising professor, Dr. Salazar Pozos. I'd also like to credit her for her hard work in advising me. And it is titled With an Empathetic Lens, Understanding the Causes of Forced Migration in Mexico Through Film Storytelling. If you've never experienced migration yourself, it's understandable that your perspective on the topic might not be complete. You may focus on the arrival of migrants if you live in a place that receives them, or think about their departure. But migration isn't just about coming and going. It's about the entire journey, the past life, possible returns, and most importantly, the reasons that force people to leave. The most vulnerable migrants are those displaced by force, people who must leave to survive. In Mexico, many face both internal and external displacement due to years of violence, conflict, and corruption linked to the war on drugs. Can I advance to the next slide? Okay. Yes. In fact, it's estimated that in 2019 alone, around 8,664 people were victims of forced displacement due to violence in Mexico. And that's the reported number, so you can imagine that it's probably higher than that. Okay. Oh, I can do it.
Yes, yes. You can.
Okay, great. This alarming number makes one wonder more about the causes for displacement, the why, especially when acts of violence and corruption are at the center. Given that many citizens from Mexico often flee to the United States as a means of survival, understanding this issue is of even greater importance from a U.S. perspective. In order to understand the causes and the experience of forced migration, one must step into that world through some sort of catalyst. Scholar Jacques Rancière suggests that art can potentially help a viewer understand a different experience or perspective on a situation. And he argues that art even has the potential to push viewers to become active participants. As proposed by, oh, I didn't advance, it didn't actually go to the next one. Okay. Laura Marks in the Skin of Film. Cinema specifically has the power of engaging the viewer's senses and emotions to create a tactile and embodied experience. Go to the next slide. So taking this into consideration, the proposal that film is the perfect vessel to bring the spectator in to understand and empathize the protagonist's stories, this paper explores the potential of a contemporary film on the topic titled Noche de Fuego. In English, it's titled Prayers for the Stolen. It was directed by Tatiana Wessel, released in 2021, available on Netflix if you're interested after this topic. In the film, a story is told that denounces the causes of forced displacement in an affective way that connects the viewers on a deeper level with the characters being displaced. Due to how closely this fictional film depicts Mexico's state in the war on drugs, I argue that it has the potential to push viewers to move beyond fiction to want to make social changes in reality. In Noche de Fuego, the film delves into various causes of forced migration, all of which are intricately tied to various forms of violence.
I'm sorry,
It's okay.
we have two things going. We have the online version. This one is the
Oh,
online version.
okay,
so
I'll do
you
it
can-
too.
Yes.
Okay, understood. Sorry, online viewers. So the story is told from the perspective of the main character, Ana. Hueso, the director, uses a dual timeline narration in which the first half of the film shows Ana and her friends around the age of 6 as young girls, and the second half shows them as teenagers. They live in an isolated rural community in the mountains in a fictitious town called San Miguel. Although Hueso intentionally avoids using gory violence, like over-the-top violence that a lot of viewers are actually numb to, she does use some subtle direct violence. Direct violence can be defined as violence done to the human body that causes pain or physical trauma. We see various examples of direct violence in Noche de Fuego when the viewer can assume that a woman is raped, a child disappears, a teacher is killed, and a femicide, the intentional killing of a woman or girl because of her gender, occurs. The majority of these examples, although not shown in the moment that they occur or ever fully shown on screen, are shocking and difficult to bear. You might ask, how are these events so jarring if we do not see them directly on screen? You can advance 2 slides. It is, in fact, because their incompleteness on screen that they are so effective in causing discomfort in the viewer, because the viewer experiences uncertainty. In these instances of direct violence, the viewer first hears a sound, but they do not see on screen what makes that sound. And this causes them to wonder what is going on. Michel Chion refers to this as acousmatic sound as a way of creating mystery about the sound's source, its properties, and its powers. The use of acousmatic sound can create a sense of tension for the viewer and has the ability to evoke specific emotions. An example of direct violence occurs when Ana's friend Juana is seemingly taken. In this scene, Ana hears sobbing from Juana's house. The viewer hears someone calling out for Juana, but the person is not shown, creating a sense of uncertainty, mystery, and worry. 6-year-old Ana, on her walk home, peers through the cracked door of the house from which the cries are coming. There, the viewer and Ana see together for the first time Juana's mother crying. Go to the next one. With blood running down her legs. The spectator can assume that she was violated and that her daughter, for whom she cries out, was taken. It's very dark, but you can see her face. On the next slide, the viewer jumps between a close-up sliver of Ana's face behind the door and the incomplete view of Juana's mother. The viewer takes this story in from the child's gaze, the gaze that across all societies is agreed upon to be the most unfair victim of trauma. This image, although never explicitly explained to the viewer or to Ana, is intolerable for the audience to bear without invoking some sort of affect. The viewer wonders who caused this pain, feels tension for the uncertainty, and ultimately outrage for the trauma caused on both of the children and the mother. Moving on to the second form of violence, this is environmental violence. You can go to the next slide, or EV for short, which is increasing worldwide with populations like that of San Miguel being the most vulnerable. Hueso situates San Miguel adjacent to poppy fields and a mine, both of which confront the townspeople with the difficult decision to either become involved for financial gain or protection, or to distance themselves. Environmental violence can be seen with the extraction of resin from the poppy plants that are in San Miguel, which is sold later for the use, the production of heroin. And pesticides are periodically sprayed from helicopters by governing bodies onto the town, but purposefully miss the poppy plants and are sprayed onto the people and animals, which directly harms them and can be called environmental violence. On the next slide, we'll delve into a specific scene. So what makes the scenes with environmental violence so painful to watch is, again, the child's perspective and the way that they're filmed. The camera work uses haptic visuality, which Laura U. Marks, who I mentioned earlier, describes as a way of seeing that feels almost like touch, creating a close sensory experience for the viewer. Studies have shown that rising violence in Mexico often serves the interests of capital like extractive companies with little regard for the people affected. In towns like San Miguel, this environmental violence leads to forced displacement. For instance, Anna's young friend, Margarito, who is about 10 years old, works in a mine without any protection, no helmet, ear or eye protection, and no breathing apparatus. On the next slide, you'll see a scene where blasts are conducted. It's a process that involves the use of explosives to break up rock or other materials. We see this scene with alternating shots that physically engage the eye. The director starts with a wide-angle perspective that shows the massiveness of the mine from Margarito's perspective. On the next slide, you'll see the explosion. The sound is powerful and the eruption is immense. And on the next slide, we start to see a variety of medium shots that show characters like Margarito and other mine workers from the waist up, engulfed by the environment and the explosion of the mine. On the next slide, you'll see again the explosion. Through this technique, the viewer subconsciously becomes aware of the character's vulnerability in the mining environment. And the last in the scene is a close-up of Margarito's face, slowly becoming covered in white dust. The air becomes visibly contaminated, thick with the debris from the blast, and the viewer observes these elements up close, encouraging a sense of feeling of the texture. The tactile nature of this experience can evoke memories, emotions, and sensations that are not purely visual, but involve the whole body, making the viewing experience deeply immersive. Arguably, the viewer cannot help but connect to the sensations of environmental violence happening to characters like Margarito. And the third type of violence that I'd like to talk about in the film, on the next slide, is perhaps the most unsettling form of violence. It is the intrusion of violence into everyday life, meaning the pervasive violence, systemic corruption, and chronic trauma experienced by the inhabitants of San Miguel infiltrates their daily existence, severely undermining their ability to live normally. In the first half of the film, after Anna's friend Juana is taken, Anna's mother decides to cut her hair to make her look boyish, an act of desperation aimed at protecting her from also being taken. The loss of agency highlights how violence forces individuals into actions that strip them of their identity and autonomy. As Anna loses her long hair, she simultaneously loses a part of herself, a visual representation of not only her femininity, but also the innocence and normalcy of everyday life. It probably goes without saying, but all of these events do lead to the forced displacement of the characters in the end. And my last slide. Films like Noche de Fuego, again, available on Netflix in English and Spanish, offer viewers a deep emotional understanding of the complex causes of forced displacement. Films like these help immerse us into the characters' lives and have the potential to motivate us to take action. This research shows how Noche de Fuego sheds light on the harsh realities of forced migration, pushing audiences to reflect and inspiring a desire for social change. Thank you.
We've got Claudia, so take a break. So people can see it on the road. I'm going to put it up so that people in the room can see it. So you're saying, watch the last one. You can see it on the wall. Were you able to open it? Okay, so it's opening online, but we need to see it in here. Yeah,
Is it on the log to the meeting? And
yeah, that's what I'm doing. Yeah.
recording in progress.
Hey, good morning, everyone. Thanks. There's an echo here. Thanks for the patience, technical last minute arrangements, but I think we're good now. So should I do something with these echoes?
Maybe we should do it from here. Okay, take that one, because I think I'm double. That's the easiest. And I don't want to.
Hola, hola. Oh.
My voice? Yeah. Hola, 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 there's a little echo. Like with no echo, so it's straight, yeah. Okay, I can hear an echo here, but is that fine? I mean, I don't mind. Yeah. Okay. Okay, good, they can hear. Yeah. Oh, right, finally. Thank you again for your patience. Claudia, Cisneros, and the title of this research is Art and Culture as Resistant Indigenous Communities Defying State Violence and Racist Repression in Peru. So I'm gonna begin talking about life and death, and I wanted you to picture the actual human beings that are behind this research and that motivated this research. This is one of them. His name is David Aketipa. He was a 50-year-old kid from Andahuaylas in southern Peru. He was the first victim of social unrest in my country, and he was a member of the National Movement of Working Children. He was a bullet pierced his chest while protesting last 2 years ago. His mother, you can see there, leaving offerings at the memorial built in his honor near the airport where he was killed. Next, please. This is also Christian Rojas, 19 years old. He had just completed his first, the kid in the picture, he had just completed his first semester of nursing studies, and he went out to shop at a market in Andahuaylas in southern Peru in December 2022. He never made it home because on his way back, he was hit in the head by a tear gas canister shot by state forces, and you can see his parents there with his picture and his dad at the cemetery. So next, please. These are only two examples out of over 50 Peruvians that were killed by state forces under Dina Boluarte's current regime. This happened between December 2022 and March 2023. And what most of them have in common is that they are from southern Peru. They are indigenous or campesino community members, Quechua speakers, and many of them impoverished populations. They were killed while protesting in the streets, exercising their constitutional rights, following a political uprising after the deposition and detention of democratically elected President Pedro Castillo. And in a report that was published by Amnesty International after they did an on-site investigation in Peru, they titled it Lethal Racism. Next, please. Extrajudicial executions and unlawful use of force by Peru's security forces. Among the things they said in this report is that the use of force by members of security forces differed between regions according to their ethnical racial composition, using lethal force more frequently when dealing with populations with greater indigenous representations. Next, please. So following the extrajudicial killings carried out by the states in 2022 and 2023, the street protests definitely decreased dramatically, but people found other ways of resisting and protesting. And hence comes my research question: how do these affected populations use music, language, and culture to resist government discrimination and violence, assert their ethnic identity against racism, and demand justice and initiate healing processes? Next, please. So art as a resistance, a form of political resistance, has a deep historical roots in nearly every modern culture worldwide. One side of subversion of power relations throughout history are the carnivals. And in Peru, that it's a multi-ethnic country with over 30 million people, carnivals are among the most important annual festivities taking place in various regions, each with its own unique traditional attire, masks, music, and performances. Next, please. So there is a subversion of power dynamics in the carnivals. I'm going to show you several different multimedia contents. You will see in this next one how this carnival troupe is subverting the criminalization of protesters by highlighting that the real criminals are those in power, and they specifically point to the current president. And also the mask and the costumes are, as much as they are festive disguises, they're also symbols of resistance against political authority. And so next one, please. So these are you're gonna see the candies, las candies, well-known troupe that uses cross-dressing, satire, and political commentary. This is in Ayacucho, southern Peru, and happened during 2023 Carnival, where they were mocking the stigmatization of protesters by the government that call them terrucos, which is like a colloquial slang name for terrorists. And yes, if you can play the video, please. Thank you. Next one, please. So carnivals are, like we said, side of power subversion, are also a place of freedom of expression without facing the same risks as they did when they were out on the streets politically protesting. And we will see in this next short clip how, for instance, the true president in the carnival challenged the police that was involved, the police force that was involved in many of these killings, and they are using a song that it's a folkloric song that they change the lyrics, and they're gonna sing it to their faces, tell them what they think. So, I'm sorry, the ones in the room cannot listen to the actual music, which is beautiful as well. But another thing that happens during these carnivals and there is this resistance, political resistance, is they assert their identity amidst the racism that generated the violence against them. So you're gonna see this troupe in Ayacucho Carnival that they're dressed in their traditional attire and singing traditional folk songs with altered lyrics to portray the current president, her ministers, and congresspeople complicity as traitors. Next one, please. Another thing that happens during these carnivals that can last several days is people in the communities get together, they gather in different places like you're gonna see now in Ayacucho, and they do a lot of parodies depicting, in this case, the tragic day of the extrajudicial killings in Ayacucho. And you're gonna see how it is performed during this collective town gathering in 2023 Carnival. You will see how the woman dressed in beige is supposed to portray the president, the other are the police, and also you'll see like huge cameras made out of like cardboard that are depicting also the media aligned with the government narratives. Please play.
Prensa mermelera, prensa mermelera, prensa pagada. Tantas muertes, tanto derramamiento de sangre en mi pueblo Ayacucho. Renuncia, señora, renuncia. El pueblo no te quiere. Justicia, justicia, justicia para Ayacucho. Tantos inocentes, tantos huérfanos por...
And the final piece I'm gonna share with you today, this multimedia piece, this is a song which composer remains anonymous, but people identify with the lyrics and with the music so much that it became sort of like a protest anthem that it's now sung across everywhere they protest in the country. And it features the genre and instruments that are typical of town bands in the Andes of Peru, which blend traditional indigenous instruments with brass instruments that were introduced by colonizers. It's also sung in Spanish and in Quechua, using their native language and also these native instruments that illustrate the idea that the medium is also the message. And it shows also how they assert their cultural pride and identity. And you're gonna see 4 female singers from Puno, southern Peru, was one of the most impacted by the violence, that recorded this song, this anonymous song, and some other scenes of people protesting artistically in the streets. Next, please. Can you play it?
Esta democracia ya no es
It's a lot longer, but guess we're running out of time, so I'm just gonna go with the discussion and findings. So explaining the racist violence against them. I should tell you that President Dina Boluarte was born in Chalhuanca, Apurímac, in the Andean region of southern Peru. She speaks some Quechua and could be categorized as a mestiza. Despite all of this, she is politically responsible for the extrajudicial killings and obstruction of justice against indigenous and mestizos people. So using intersectionality, transnational, and the colonial framework, two explanations emerge: internalized colonialism and colorism. Next, please. Internalized colonialism, it's explained by the colonization process in Peru that led to complex scenarios where mestizos who rose to power under Spanish rule also developed racist attitudes towards other mestizos and indigenous people. And this continues, this goes on to these days where Latin American societies adopt and reproduce these Eurocentric norms at expense of their own cultural heritage. And colorism, it's defined as discrimination based on different and gradient skin tones. This intersects with classism to shape social hierarchies and perceptions of race and class. Next, please. So just to conclude, I would say, answering to the research questions, that in Peru, performance as a form of resistance manifested through different various cultural expressions, including protests, marches, street theater, public rituals, and they aim at challenging dominant power structures. Street performances, particularly during the carnivals, were spaces of empowerment within the public sphere, and allowed for the disruption of the social order while this happened, with fewer risks compared to traditional political protests. The carnivals emerge as these spaces for identity and cultural assertion in the face of state racism and violence, serving as sites of political contestation. It also served as a place for sharing collective grief, fostering a sense of community amidst the pain and injustice that they suffer. It allowed individuals to re-exist amidst the profound pain of loss, stigmatization, criminalization, and persecution. Issues rooted in racism, internalized colonialism, and colorism that remain ingrained in today's society. But it also provided spaces to celebrate their lives and assert their cultural identity and resist ongoing oppression. And I hope this study can contribute to a deeper understanding of the interplays between state violence, racial discrimination, and artistic resistance. Thank you very much.
We have another student, a grad student who is online, Sophia. So we have a really terrible echo, so I'm going to exit out of this one. Oh, okay. Like this one, you think? And no echo anymore. All right. So Sophia, I see you. Get ready. Sophia, can you, let's see, she might not be able to make her close. There you are. All right, let me do a quick introduction, okay? So Sophia is a writer, editor, and facilitator studying public administration here at DePaul. Her work explores the intersections of narrative, civic participation, and just approaches to city planning and local economies. She has been published in Yes Magazine, Daily Cause, and Toho Journal. Prior to moving to Chicago, she served as the Young Leaders for Change Fellow at the American Friends Service Committee in Philadelphia. She is currently an editor at the American Planning Association, where she works on Planning Magazine and the people behind the Plan podcast. Sophia's strict research, social transformation research, collaborative research, takes her back to her home region, as she studies the generational impacts of redlining on environmental justice in Atlantic City, New Jersey. She holds a BA in Urban Studies from Vassar College. Sophia,
Thank you.
welcome. All right, so now we need to hear her in here. Hold on just a minute, Sophia. Oh. Can you talk, Sophia?
Yes, can you hear me?
So we can't hear her. How about now?
Testing?
Nope. Yeah. So the issue is here, I think. Ah, so Zoom is hearing, but we're not hearing. Okay, thanks for letting us know. Can you hear us?
Can you hear me? I can hear you.
You can hear now. There might be an echo. Keep talking, Sophia.
Okay. Testing, testing. Can you hear me? Testing again.
We're ready.
Ready. Okay, good morning. Thank you for joining me, everyone. My name is Sophia Burns. I'm a graduate student here at DePaul, and I'm presenting to you my research entitled High Stakes Rising Tides, Climate Justice and Narrative Reclamation in Atlantic City, New Jersey. What you're looking at on my first slide is 3 homes that were impacted by Hurricane Sandy in the north side of Atlantic City, which right up against the Rebel Casino and Hotel, which was finished just about 10 years ago. Really provocative image that I've been focused on for many years as an urbanist and always wanted to study. So my research is doing 2 things. First, coming into this project, my base question was, how does Atlantic City's history of racial and economic exclusion shape the need for climate justice? Thinking as a coastal city, as a barrier island, and also as a city that experienced redlining and a lot of exclusive development throughout the last 100 years. What does that mean today? How does the history inform the future? Which is my second question. What tools are residents using to create a new urban narrative for a resilient future? So for those who don't know, thinking about climate resilience means planning for climate impacts into the future. And what you're seeing in this image is from Our Lady of the Sea, a Catholic church in Atlantic City and a Catholic school. That'll come into play a little bit later. A little bit of background on Atlantic City. It was founded as a tourist mecca in New Jersey back in the late 19th century.
Atlantic City grew up around recreation, food, tourism, and became home to a lot of working class individuals, a lot of African Americans who came up from the South and settled there to work in the theme parks and on the boardwalks. What you'll see here in the insert is Martin Luther King Jr. opposing at Chicken Bone Beach, which is located on the city's north side. The city was pretty aggressively redlined, meaning that mortgages were denied in the north side, which was predominantly Black and still is, while the downtown and the boardwalk area was allowed to grow and develop at a much faster, deeper pace. So what we see too in this map is that the north side juts up against the bay, which now as tides are rising with climate change, this makes this area much more prone to flooding. In the 1970s, the city saw a decline, as a lot of American cities did, a lot of disinvestment, and fewer Americans were visiting American cities for tourism as airfare got cheaper. So the city had an idea for redevelopment, which was to bring casinos into town and create an East Coast sort of Las Vegas. So in came the Casino Reinvestment Development Authority, as the name suggests. It was founded with the intent to redevelop the city's neighborhoods, but that really never came to fruition. So 20, 30, and even 40 years pass, and that reinvestment wasn't quite made. And those gaps came to a head in 2012 with Hurricane Sandy, which was life-changing for most people in the Northeast, in the Mid-Atlantic. New Jersey and New York were hit the hardest. And as you can see in the image on the left, the Steel Pier, which was the premier tourist destination in Atlantic City, was taken completely underwater. 80% of the city was impacted. However, the tourist boardwalk wasn't, because there are sand dunes there. So those hilly infrastructures that prevent sea level rise from coming into the buildings. Most people's homes went under 8 feet of water, and 9,000 out of 30,000 residents had filed insurance claims that year, causing a lot of people to leave the city. They saw a tremendous decline, not only in residents who work and keep up the city and the city's tax base, but also the tourism sector suffered greatly, as a lot of people in the region were hampered in their ability and funds to travel, but also their desire to visit a city that had just experienced a natural disaster. Important to this is the government's neglect of Atlantic City. A lot of the funds from the state government, from FEMA, were given to northern and central New Jersey cities, but Atlantic City really had to scrape the barrel to get what they could to redevelop their public infrastructure. Flooding is damaging not only to houses, but to your pipe systems, your sewage, and also, namely, the thing that brings people into town, which is the tourism. So now we're 12 years out from Hurricane Sandy, and I took a trip down to Atlantic City this summer as part of my research to see how are residents changing this narrative of a city that's downtrodden and disinvested. Although that is very much the truth from the government side, I found that there is a lot of power in what residents are doing to change the way that they're seen and advocate for a different present and future. So walking down the streets, you'll see kind of low-lying, this is right near the church and the Catholic school, lower-lying homes and schools and residential places up against the casinos. And here I encountered a community garden at Our Lady of the Sea and met some of the folks who are doing this work. Now, the important thing about gardening and open spaces, there's much more open space now after Sandy, is if they are planted in, if there are trees and plants, they're actually really important infrastructure to prevent flooding. So the way that the gardener phrased this is that they want to preserve their ecological heritage. So thinking about, this is obviously a city, but post-disaster, residents have taken those vacant spaces and turned them into something productive. Atlantic City is a food desert, And this is contributing to a more sustainable and slower food system so that people have access to fresh fruits and vegetables, plants to beautify their homes, but also teaching young people how to farm, how to grow their own vegetables, and creating farmers markets around the city. I think that the coalition is a really powerful message to the city that this is what residents are really looking for and interested in. It's great that the city has been able to kind of resuscitate the tourism sector, not to what it was 15 years ago, but that's where most of the investment is. And here we see that residents are using their voices, their money, and their time to create a different urban future, one that's more green, one that's inclusive. Some of the Green Coalition members include schools, they include churches, but they also include other sort of policy advocacy organizations, and they meet monthly to come together and talk about different initiatives like this garden club. They've also used GIS mapping to create a resource for residents to see where are community gardens and where are food banks, food stalls that serve fresh fruits and vegetables, as there is no grocery store in the city proper. And something that can be appreciated about this effort is that it's geographically dispersed. It's actually in the neighborhoods, something that a lot of people who criticize the CRDA, the redevelopment organization, have said is that the redevelopment has not taken place in the neighborhoods. So people are taking that into their own hands. The second way that I see people changing the narrative is through the built environment, through murals. I was really surprised to find that this is really a city of murals. This is one that just opened up 6 days ago. It's called Always Dreaming, Always Growing. And it uses these plant motifs to insert some color into the landscape, but also remind folks of the importance of the natural environment and people coexisting with the ecology. And that's by muralist Manuela Guillen. And something about the mural process is that it's funded by private organizations, by nonprofits, some state agencies, really a mixed match of funders. But the process of choosing a site and coming up with the content is very much community engaged, brings people into the process of what they want to see. And I'll end on this one, a really small mural on the side of a corner store that really struck me, that it's made by an organization called Mighty Writers, a youth writing group that teaches young people how to use their voice and creative writing. Something beautiful about this is that it talks about not only how people can cultivate the environment, you see a person planting against the skyline, but the importance of preserving the natural environment. You see the heron in the water, the garden, the flowers, the cattails. So what I'm seeing in this research is that people are pushing back against this narrative that there's only one way to redevelop the city, and that the importance of ecology and preservation and ultimately climate resilience is what will lead Atlantic City into a sustainable and more just future. Thank you.
Not sure if you heard the applause. Thank you. That was beautiful.